And we're back with another edition of the Cosmic Crossfire. And I'll tell you what, it's great to have everyone back on the show with the Pop Culture Cosmos and the PCC Multiverse. But it wouldn't be a Cosmic Crossfire without my good friend. He is the man, the myth, the legend behind RobMcCallumFilms.com. You got to check out all the great things going on in the world of Rob McCallum because I've got him right here. It is Rob McCallum. What's going on, my friend?
Oh, I'm just trying to get you some top secret stuff so that you can take a look at things, a lot of the projects we talk about ahead of time, so that we can promote it. And so that's what I'm doing at this very moment here, live on the Pop Culture Cosmos, the Cosmic Crossfire. But now you have my full attention. I think. I think in 3, 2, 1, you have my full attention now.
But it's awesome to have you here, my friend, and truly great to have you a part of the show as always. And I just got to tell everyone out there, if you get a chance, you got to check out all of his great stuff on RobMcCallumFilms.com, including the news and updates on the upcoming Kitty documentary, which is being released, I believe, on the 30th, if I'm not mistaken.
March 30th.
All right. And also as well, you've got your coordination and work with the Power of Grayskull, and then also as well, you've got a lot of other great things coming up, a lot of other diverse projects, which super secret, but still, I'll let you announce them as they come out. But it's just so great to have you part of the show, my friend. But tell you what, there's a lot of stuff going on in the realm of pop culture. So pray tell, Rob, what's going on in your world when it comes to pop culture?
Oh, well, it's a pretty big week. There's lots of trailers that are hit. There's lots of films that are out now. Just as Coco took #1 at the box office on the home media charts for last week, I am sure that it'll be dethroned this week by, of course, The Last Jedi.
And before, I actually want to ask you this. Do you sense, I don't know, I know there's something that Josh and I talked about with this Disney bleed over in all their projects, like A Wrinkle in Time got affected adversely, in my opinion, box office wise, by the tremendous success of Black Panther. Do you see the same thing going on in the home media market when it comes to Coco and their sales being maybe impacted by the release of that certain Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, coming out?
I don't know. I think A Wrinkle of Time didn't have a lot of press or promotion behind it. I didn't even hear about it until like a month ago, and I only heard about it because Oprah had a connection with it. I know it's supposed to be like a young adult novel, but I had heard about it literally once. I put the trailer on and I was not impressed with the trailer. It just felt really bland. And I hadn't heard anything until I just saw the headline saying that it underperformed at the box office. I don't think that Disney is quite cannibalizing itself just yet. I think the people that are going to go check out Black Panther is probably a different audience than A Wrinkle in Time. And conversely, on the home media front, I think that there's a different audience for Coco than there is for The Last Jedi. The superhero and Star Wars audience being a little bit older, the above the 25 kind of range, compared to a Coco and A Wrinkle in Time, which are going to skew obviously more family friendly and younger, I believe. Now, because Disney owns so much, and if the Fox deal goes through officially with a big rubber stamp, then yeah, they'll be competing with themselves at some point. And I think that's a good problem for them to have. Whether they make $100 million off 2 films at 50-50 each or at 75-25, they're still making the same amount. That's the thing I think everybody's got to remember. There's only going to be so much money being spent every year. People talk about profits going up and profits going down, but really there is only a limited pool of cash that gets spent kind of every year that doesn't change all that much year to year. So with Disney kind of putting out more and more stuff, they only have certain access to that pool of cash. So they will start to cannibalize just by default of releasing more. And this is the problem that filmmakers like myself have with Disney buying assets. If they release more, they're going to hit that cap of available cash sooner, which means they will release less, which means filmmakers like myself have less of a chance to get something out there because there's only going to be so many things released by the people that are allowed to release them or have the say in what gets released.
Okay. Well, like I said, to me, I can just say I think there is a little bit of bleed over, just a little bit between those properties as far as both on the box office and home media front. But, like you said, there still is kind of a concern when it comes to Disney owning so much of the home entertainment field. But it also will take place as well when they have their streaming environment and their new channel when that comes about. And then also they own quite a bit of interest in Hulu as well.
Yeah, again, it's going to be really interesting to see how the next 3 years shake out. And we say this all the time, and I wish it was like, let's talk about it Friday and analyze it Monday, almost like in the world of sports when it comes to the playoffs, and you can talk about what happens in the NFL, where the teams break down, when the injuries happen, where the refs kind of missed a call. But this is media, and this takes longer. This isn't. This is almost very akin to like the NHL. When you draft in the NFL, not to get on the sports train, but I know they're part of our pop culture cosmos family. When you draft in the NFL and sometimes the NBA, those players jump in almost right away and make the immediate impact. In hockey, when you draft, if it's outside the first 4 picks, usually those players are playing in the minors for another 3 to 4 years. And then slowly over those 3 to 4 years, you get to see them come up to the big leagues and make a difference.
Same thing with baseball.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you've got like the junior leagues that kind of flourish a little bit more because you have that caliber talent, and that's why you don't really have a junior league in the NFL. You have college, so there is no intermediary kind of league. So it's the same thing with media. As you make these big moves, it takes a while for the landscape to shift and ebb and flow. It's a lot like plate tectonics, where you've got this massive North American plate that is Disney, but now it covers the entire globe. So as things change, they're going to grind and adjust. And I think the biggest thing that's going to be the disruptor is the constant evolution of the Chinese box office and how that will dictate business moves in the West.
I believe so as well. I think the Chinese box office at some point in the time, what we're talking about the next 2-3 years, actually probably a lot sooner, could be as soon as this year, where they are now superseding the United States as the #1 box office entity. And if everybody takes a look at Box Office Mojo or comparison box office sites, when you look at the worldwide standings, if you look at the top 10, you're going to see at least 4, if not 5, different movies that are currently residing in the top 10 that are Chinese homegrown movies that were primarily presented to a Chinese audience.
Yeah, it's a real deal now. I mean, the internet has long been said to shrink the world and make it more of a global market instead of a regional and domestic one. And this is real life now. Like, there are films that are performing well in the top 10 that North American audiences will never see. It is almost like it had been for the last 50 years everywhere else. Now everybody in North America sees what it's like. And I point to one film that really started this big rollout of international importance at the box office, and that's Rio. It's an animated film that had a South American bent to it, so it was released outside of the U.S. first, and it did incredibly well overseas before opening domestically. That press and that reputation really pushed the domestic numbers up so that they started matching 50-50, and everybody said, oh my goodness, look at this. There is market to be had internationally. Couple that with the 3D fad at the time that is still around, but I don't think as important to people.
No, IMAX is actually a bigger entity at this point in time.
And you're getting a lot of discussion in how which markets play, why, and how, and then it's really grown since I believe Rio has come out. But that's the tipping point, if you ask me, when international box office became more of a thing and less of icing on the cake.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that. And it's nice to see that the world is truly catching up to the domestic market here as far as box office is concerned, because that's the way it should be, because we are only one here in North America, Canada, United States, just one small part of the equation as far as population wise. And it's just great to finally see that the world is just about ready to start catching up with us when it comes to actual movie watching and all that great stuff that's going on out there. But I do want to mention, in fact, it's now influencing a lot of things, including like the Infinity War movie that got moved up a week, so it matches day and date with international release.
True. It's interesting to see these last minute changes and shifts. Usually that would happen 8 months to a year before a film. If it was going to move, that's when you would see shifts at the box office dates, because there's a lot of pieces in play. And so when you make that decision, you are basically cannibalizing your marketing that you've done to gear people towards this date, this, you know, can't miss date, and you're booking against other films that are deciding to open, and you've got the promotional stuff that is in the queue. So all that stuff has to shift in order to accommodate a new release. So that's why it's not too common when that happens. And usually when it does shift, it isn't by a week, it's usually by months, as we saw with like The Force Awakens, for example. It shifted from May to December.
Well, I will say this, it's actually becoming more commonplace right now because of what happened with Infinity War, and also as well Solo. You saw Deadpool 2 move up a week, and then also Rampage also readjusted its schedule as well when Infinity War changed its mind on what day it's going to release here in America.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how much more fluid that becomes, and the significance and role of the box office as we get into more of the streaming apps and the streaming services that people have at their disposal. And one thing that I am going to be paying attention, a little bit more attention to, as we started off with the top of the show talking about home media, are those home media numbers, those disc sales, those digital downloads, and the on-demand kind of rankings, what's out there, and how that plays akin to not just money earned at the box office, but attendance. I think attendance is going to be the new metric that matters most. Because then you don't have to worry about adjusting for inflation or screens. You can kind of just look at the attendance picture per picture and take those viewing numbers against what the home media numbers are, and just see where the trend is. Because I will say, and we'll talk about it later in the show, I will say that I made my first digital purchase for a film that I was planning to get on disc, but I decided to take the plunge because it was released a couple weeks before the physical version. Now I may go get the Blu-ray version of this particular title, but I kind of the digital version was cheaper in this case, which surprised me, and I had access to something that I was actually really looking forward to. But we'll get to that later in the show.
Fair enough indeed. Fair enough indeed. But you've got me all in suspense because of it.
There you go. That's how we set them up and pay them off. So to kick things off, I wanted to talk about the big news coming out of Lucasfilm and everything in Star Wars, and that's that Jon Favreau has been tapped to handle producing and writing on a new live-action Star Wars series that is going to be part of the Disney streaming service. And it's not so much that I want to talk about what this series is or could be, or if it has anything to do with what George Lucas was developing in 2003 to 2006, where he reportedly had 100 scripts commissioned for this series that took place in the underbelly of Coruscant with gangsters and the Hutts and vile villains and stuff. What was interesting about this to me is that this news broke on International Women's Day. And because it broke on that day, this news had huge backlash. They said, why can't Disney turn to women and put them in power of some of these films? Why do we always have to have white dudes or old white dudes helming these stories that are important, or, you know, the world's biggest franchise? Well, why is this got to happen? And, you know, this might be a little bit against the grain, but I got to tell you, it really kind of bothered me that people missed the point of what was going on here, or weren't seeing the forest through the trees. I think a lot of the times people see that they have these directors, whether it's, you know, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, that get ousted and replaced by Ron Howard, so it's dude for dude, and they got, you know, Gareth Edwards and Rian Johnson and J.J. Abrams. Do they forget that Kathleen Kennedy is in charge of Star Wars and everything that happens at Lucasfilm? You have a woman at the head of the world's biggest movie entity. And apparently that's not good enough for the people that were upset that this news broke, that Jon Favreau, a person who has the right kind of skill set to handle a Star Wars film. You know, that's not to say that there aren't women out there that could do it, but they don't have the resume that Favreau has. And again, that could be part of the problem, because he's been given the opportunity to direct big projects that have a lot of character work, that have a lot of CG, that have a lot of animation, that have big story kind of sweeping changes. But she is in charge of the biggest movie brand franchise in existence. And it is a woman that is making this choice. Why can't you give her credit for keeping this franchise afloat and, you know, watching it grow and watching it rebirth? It's her. She's the architect. Yes, Disney owns Lucasfilm now, but it's quite clear, much like Kevin Feige and everything at Marvel, and frankly everything at Pixar too, that Disney is really just kind of they own the farm, and these are all the different animals that are doing their own thing. Lucasfilm is a Kathleen Kennedy company at this point. Yes, it has roots in George Lucas. She has worked all the way from personal assistant to Spielberg on Raiders, all the way through, and she has earned her stripes. She knows what she's doing when she's making these decisions, and that should be good enough. I get that we want to see diversity and stuff, and that we had, Patty Jenkins on Wonder Woman, and she did a great job. But like you and I talked about for Black Panther.
Well, but then again, that's also what came up that day as well, is because of the success of Ryan Coogler and Black Panther, that people wanted to go ahead and see even more diversity from an ethnic fashion, as well as far as the behind the scenes creators of all these great Star Wars upcoming material.
And that's totally great. But what happens when you make a big deal about hiring a woman to do a Star Wars picture, or you hire Ryan Coogler to do a Star Wars picture and it doesn't perform well, or it gets the backlash that Last Jedi got? Is that going to be more a Star Wars discussion, or is that going to be like, oh, well, that's because this is the first time they put a woman in the director's chair and it didn't do well? It's great when it works out and everybody says, yes, we need more of this. And I'm a firm believer we do need more distinct voices and original voices contributing to this ongoing saga, considering there's not many franchises that can support as many entries as Star Wars can kind of basically give everybody. There's not too many universes out there that allow for all these different saga stories, Skywalker stories, or these one-offs that are coming down the pipe by the looks of it. So just allow that to exist first, and then realize that we have the opportunity to have voices in there. But my fear is, if you start hiring women or people of different ethnicities to tell a story, and it backlashes and it burns, that they're going to get the blame for it because of who they are and where they come from, instead of the actual content itself. Now, I don't want to make decisions based out of fear, like, well, I'm not going to hire a woman because I'm afraid that a woman will mess this up, and then women won't get a chance anyway. So like, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, and I'm safe because I'm not going to hire a woman in case it comes down on her. Well, poor her. Right? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is hire women for sure, but make sure you do like more than one, so you don't make an example out of them. Like, give women chances, give people of color chances to tell their stories and to be a part of the bigger story discussion. But don't say, let's hope that this one works out so that we can do another one. Make a firm commitment to, we're going to hire these 3 or 4 women to direct these 3 or 4 stories, or we're going to hire these people of different colors, whether they're women or men, and we're going to let them tell their stories. Does that make sense? Because I think when we just put one person out there and we all sit back and watch and we kind of go, is this going to work out? Then I think we're doing the same thing as not hiring them. And I think that's some of the thinking that's going on here, if you ask me.
Well, I think you're just saying in a nutshell that some people are just wanting diversity for the sake of diversity.
Yeah, I think so. I honestly do.
Not for the fact that, if you have someone that has a good mind for the project, no matter what ethnic background, no matter what a man or woman or anything of that nature comes into play, that basically that should be the end all as far as it's concerned. Kathleen Kennedy.
No, yeah, it should be the end all, but that list of possible people is going to be tainted because a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to be on that list. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I know a lot of people gave Jon Favreau flack when he was appointed as far as the person to head up the Star Wars TV show, just as the Game of Thrones writers were given a ton of flack as far as creating a new trilogy in and of themselves as well. I think also compounding both as far as within recent announcements kind of got the people in a major uproar as far as, not having diversity. But like you said, it all goes back to diversity for the sake of diversity. It's not good. But if you want diversity that with individuals, giving them a fair chance to provide consumers with a quality product, then there you go. Ryan Coogler, he wasn't hired for the sake of his background or anything of his nature. He was hired because he could really direct, and he's done a lot of great stuff that's out there. Fruitvale Station, just a tremendous picture, and as you can see on the screen, he has got skill and talent that is truly awesome to see, and being great out there. And with Patty Jenkins, you can see it as well. I mean, this talent that comes out to the forefront. You can see it. And just because she's a woman and just because Ryan Coogler is African American, that should not bode well into that. That should not bode at all into that. It should be the fact that they both are quality directors. You gave them gave them a quality script and a quality foundation for them to go ahead and make an outstanding film on each occasion. And going forward, when it comes to either Jordan Peele, who did a tremendous job with Get Out, it just let these companies, let the Kevin Feige's of the world, let the Kathleen Kennedys decide with the the best interest of the fans at heart, who is the best individuals of any background to go ahead and actually, mentor and actually continue to try and develop these franchises even more than what they have been already.
Now, I think the biggest thing, and I agree with everything you're saying, I think that diversity for the sake of diversity is important. I think it is important, but here's the catch. Here's the big Rob McZob asterisk on that. Give me diverse storytellers. Okay? I want diversity in terms of how to tell a story and how to execute it as a filmmaker. That's what I want to see, and I think that's when we're going to really see some changes and some interest in these genres that might get oversaturated. Now, the easiest thing to go to is, well, give me somebody of a different color or a different gender. That's diversity. And yeah, there is an inherent perspective shift on that for sure.
But if you keep getting quality products, if you keep putting out their quality material, it's going to have to, by sheer necessity, be diverse as far as who brings it out to the table. Because if you continue putting out great project after great project after great project, you just cannot all come from, it cannot all come from one ethnicity. If good projects and good ideas come from a diverse background, and eventually good products will come out on the screen, and that diversity will show in a more organic fashion than trying to force feed it down everyone's throats.
Yeah, I mean, it's true. If we keep getting the same people from the same ideology, we're going to get shades of gray in what gets out there. But I don't want to just hire, a woman or someone of color because they are different for the sake of wanting something different. I think it's got to be more than that. And it's not an easy job for everybody. I certainly don't think Favreau should get flack. I certainly don't think Disney should get flack because they let this PR piece leak out on International Women's Day. If anything, we've got to blame the kind of world that we live in, that we must adhere to certain rules that change every day. Okay, bam, International Women's Day. Everything you release or talk about must pertain to the celebration of women. Like, it's crazy that they only get one day to get celebrated, especially in the world that we live in the last year or so. But like, come on, that's not how this works. And we don't need to be so precious about these things. And when we become so precious about these things, that's when they actually break even more, because we hold them so tight and they shatter in our hands. Yeah,
I couldn't agree with you more on that.
Moving along to something more lighthearted. That's okay. Well, I know you like these hard-hitting, engaging, no-win scenarios.
Josh and I just recently talked about gun violence and video game and that correlation, so that was.
Oh, well, video games are to blame. Isn't that the easy answer?
No.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought Call of Duty was training Hitler Youth of today. No,
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Sorry, that's the news headline I saw. I clicked on it to learn more. A new trailer dropped the other day. It's for Fantastic Beasts: Crimes of Grindelwald. I think that's how you say the name. Yes. And I got to tell you, this is the worst trailer I have seen in a very long time. Now, I am sure I am going to be in the minority because there are Harry Potter fanatics out there that are just itching to have more of this universe. They just want to relive those Harry Potter moments from when they were growing up or from, 10 or so years ago.
I have two at home.
And you know what? But I think your daughters are of the right age that when Harry Potter was coming out, they probably weren't going to see the first few in the theater. They caught them on the home video run. So now, this is their theatrical kind of trilogy that they're starting to see. Yeah.
But they got that from their mom, who's a big time Harry Potter fan.
Well, I'd be really curious to see what the ladies in your life think about the Fantastic Beasts story so far. The first film I fell asleep in the theater, which rarely happens, let alone in a film as loud and as dosed as special effects. That's not saying I don't like it. I've tried to watch it since. Just hasn't held my attention the way that the Harry Potter films did specifically. But this trailer is so paint by numbers and so bland. And for a film that is called Fantastic Beasts, where are the Fantastic Beasts? There's almost nothing. And the synopsis that's been given for this is a magizoologist Newt Scamander, or however you say his salamander name, joins forces with young Albus Dumbledore to prevent the devious Gellert Grindelwald from raising pure blood wizards to rule over all non-magical beings. Now, it sounds exactly like the Harry Potter stuff, so it doesn't feel fresh at all. It feels pretty lame. It feels like we're going to get these wizards to stop everybody else from existing. And I read a synopsis on a fan site, and it was the most cliched thing that I ever read. It's like lines will be drawn, heroes must pick sides, loves will break, and like it's all the cliches that you can come across. And I was just thinking, like, what is the point of this trilogy? Is it just to fill the pockets of Warner Brothers at this point? Because even though it's written by J.K. Rowling, you know, the only person of real authority in the Potterverse, if that's the term that's being used now, I think it is, then I just don't see anything new coming from this. And well, what did you think of the trailer? I mean, I was left, I don't know, wanting something different than what we saw.
Well, I agree with you on the fact that when you have a Fantastic Beasts movie coming out and there's no Fantastic Beasts really in it, it's kind of a shame. I know it wanted to try and delve into a little bit more about the relationship between Jude Law's character, Dumbledore, and a little bit about Johnny Depp's Grindelwald. It's actually being changed a little bit from what the books say, because from what I've told and what I've read, that there's a different kind of relationship between those two than what most likely will appear on screen, as far as possibly a love interest there. I think that's from what I was able to gather, but obviously they're not going to be able to, well, there looks like from all appearances that they're not going to be able to go, they're not going to go down that road as far as from that it's going to be more adversarial, so to speak. So I don't know. It was just a trailer. And Rob, when it comes down to you, I want to ask you this before I move on with the answer a little bit more in depth. But if you're doing your next feature film, can you please not, when you're cutting the trailer, the first scene be a cityscape or some type of
honestly thought this exact same thing when I saw the trailer. I'm like, here's the obligatory drone shot through the mountaintops or over the city to see exactly what it's like. And I don't know if I was thinking, because I'm cutting box art trailer right now, as I mentioned before we jumped on the air. And I'm like, do I need like some sort of cityscape shot for 3 seconds just to let people realize they're watching a trailer before I jump into it? I literally thought about that. Like, it's
just so irritating.
Here's, again, paint by numbers. Here's the world that you forgot that we returned to, but it looks like every other trailer because it's this magnificent drone shot.
In a world. And I don't think, the voiceover dude, I think he's passed away or he doesn't do it anymore. So you can't.
Well, it's just a different era of trailers. Now they don't even have voiceover trailers.
Yeah, but it's just so cliche, paint by numbers, obligatory, whatever phrase you want to use, as far as those, like you said, those drone shots or helicopter shots or whatever that they utilize. And you know what? I'll tell you what, actually, let's do the opposite. If you ever, next time you're able to do a feature film, you know what? The first trailer should all be just those drone shots. Forget about, showing anything about the movie itself. Just all those drone shots. Just do that. 2 minutes of that. But anyways, getting back to it, it did not enthrall me. The Harry Potter series, I've actually seen all the films at one time or another, but it's never really gotten a hold of me. I've seen them because my wife's big fan, and my daughter's now becoming a big fans of it as well. They're going through the books as we speak. So
I love the Harry Potter series.
I will say this: the Fantastic Beasts movie, to me, or first one, was actually better than any of the Harry Potter films I've actually watched.
Oh, interesting.
So I enjoyed it more, maybe because it takes place before that whole Harry Potter series is concerned. but I don't know. It just, like I said, the trailer itself, it's, underwhelmed, and from your point of view and a lot of others in regards to the Solo trailer, you can't have a initial trailer, an initial look that's that underwhelming.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that it takes place before all the Harry Potter stuff, mainly because as the audience only knows what's taken place in the Harry Potter verse. So why not set this after that? There's nothing I've seen in this other than what they're trying to do now with Dumbledore, which is just trying to tap into that existing Harry Potter fan base that can't be done after the fact. Why can't
I
this
still
be
think they're
set
going to
after
go
the fact?
back to. I still think they're going to go back to an adult Harry Potter as far as in the movies, as
Yeah,
far as that's
maybe.
any.
I mean, I like the Harry Potter stuff until they got into like these wizards versus those wizards. Like once it became basically us versus them, and less about the magic and mystery of wizards in the world that we live in, and here's the different things that they're up against in each of the chapters. Like I really liked the first, I think, 4 or 5 films, and then it went downhill for me. And so when Fantastic Beasts came out, I thought, okay, this is cool because this is like there's this guy who's basically trying to document all these different things. So all these films can basically be about different hunts that's going on and how that's affecting the wizarding world as a whole. But they've already kind of scrapped that one film into it. So we'll see how
Well,
that goes.
Well, for me, like I said, I've seen them all, but they just, to me, they just bleed. One bleeds into another, and they just seem to like run into. It just does not flow very well for me as far as a whole series is concerned. And I apologize to all Harry Potter fans for that, but it
You've
just
had
has.
it out for Harry Potter since you've declared you don't like butterbeer.
That's true, but just take a look at my Facebook profile to see that. But I will say this. That it would be a great idea if they did go back to Harry Potter as at an older age. I might actually get into it as far as seeing him, because the last obviously few scenes of the last Harry Potter movie involved all of them as adults sending their kids away to become wizards themselves, and it would just be great to see him revisit that. Okay, I'm bringing that wand out of the dust and cobwebs and try and fight off whatever evil spirit is coming at this time around. But to see it beforehand, the Fantastic Beasts, like you said, it's just a cash grab for Warner Brothers at this point. They're just trying to go ahead and try and lengthen it all, just like the Lord of the Rings, my prized, beloved trilogy of films. Lengthened it with The Hobbit. And did they need to? No, they didn't need to. But it is, again, something that wanted to be lengthened out just for monetary purposes. Did it help enhance the Lord of the Rings whole thing as far as is concerned? No. And I'm sure they're going to go back to the Lord of the Rings universe at some point in time and try and see if they can squeeze out a little bit more of Tolkien's story, that whether it's the Tolkien family given permission or what have you. Will it be necessary? No. I personally would have liked them to have stayed at the first 3 movies, but it's all about the almighty dollar, man. The almighty dollar.
Yeah, something like that. So moving on, we've got, of course, the obligatory discussion about the Last Jedi release. It's out there digitally now. A couple weeks, it comes out on Blu-ray. And as I alluded to earlier in the show, I was going to hold off on the Blu-ray, but I actually ended up doing the digital purchase, mainly because of the bonus features, not because I was itching to see the film again. But it comes packed with a full feature-length documentary called The Director and the Jedi, which takes a look at the making of The Last Jedi, focusing on Rian Johnson and his team. And there's another cool feature that Rian Johnson tweeted about, because it's really hard to find and you wouldn't be able to look at it or notice that it's out there given just any kind of digital purchase or disc purchase. And that's that there's a music-only cut of The Last Jedi featuring only the score by John Williams. So there's no dialogue, there's no sound effects, there's no sound design. It's just the score. These are 2 kind of examples of features that are getting a lot of press and attention. So I thought, should we talk about the necessity for home media to have these extras, and what's the role, and what do you think the importance is? Is it what it used to be? Does it matter?
Well, it was special at one point in time. I mean, like all things, it was special when it was originally introduced and put out there, and people love it. Now it just seems like it's necessity, and It's only for those really grading the actual box set. Okay, what kind of features does it have? Does it have the obligatory documentary, behind the scenes, extra deleted scenes, whatnot? Oh, well, it doesn't. Oh, well, it's not exactly a great Blu-ray to have. In this case, with the Last Jedi, it looks like it's got a great array of stuff as far as that's concerned. And people are making a $15, $20, $25, sometimes even more dollar investment in these Blu-rays and box sets and whatnot. So I think you should, as people who are investing that kind of money, should have that array of type of extra stuff, because what else is the studio going to do with it? Just in the past years, way back when a long time ago, they would just leave it on the cutting room floor, they would throw it away, they would dispose of it. And now there's actually use for it and a way they can monetize of it. But no, it does not have the special je ne sais quoi that it once had when they first started doing it, back in the VHS tape latter part of that era, and then into the DVD market era.
This was the first time that I made the kind of choice, because money's a little tight around here with a newborn, and the Blu-ray up here in Canada is going for $28, and this was $20 American, so I saved a couple dollars. I got it a little early. I'm really more interested in the features than I am the film itself, mainly because I've seen the film, and as much as I'm a Star Wars fan, and like a big kind of believer in thinking and talking about the trilogies and the overall stories, and I'm going to get the Blu-ray at some point for the collection, so that if the internet dies or iTunes explodes, I can still find a way to watch the movie. But I would have probably spent $20 just to see this documentary anyways, and that's kind of what convinced me. And then that's what kind of led us to the topic today, is like, how important are these features? And I think they're very important to extend the life and the appreciation of the film. I was talking to my frequent collaborator, Jordan Morris, before you and I jumped on to do the show, and he said he had heard about the documentary, he hadn't seen it yet, but he thought that more than any other kind of special feature in any recent release for any recent film, this feels like it's almost a complementary companion piece that needs to get out there so that people can kind of understand what was going on. But he also said that it's Disney's attempt to fight some of the backlash that director Rian Johnson and Disney received for choices made in The Last Jedi. And I will say that this is not like a big PR film at all. Like, early on, we hear Mark Hamill talk about him not agreeing at all with what Rian Johnson thinks about Luke and the direction he wants to go with Luke and the role of Luke Skywalker. And even though Mark Hamill recently has said that he regrets saying such things and now understands that he is not the hero of the trilogy and that it's more about Rey and him being, the dark side to her light and challenging her in that way, and he understands that, he regrets saying that. And I think that's really a shame that he regrets that, because, truth is truth. You feel something, you should get it out there and talk about it. I think, he's a trooper for saying, I disagree with everything you're doing, but of course I'm going to, listen and follow your vision, because that's what you do as an actor. You trust the director. You have to do what you can. But I don't think that this documentary will change people's minds. I think it paints an overwhelming picture of what it's like to make a Star Wars movie in ways that no other behind the scenes feature I've seen for Star Wars has done yet. The closest came to, on the Revenge of the Sith Blu-ray, there was Anatomy of a Scene, which is, I think, an hour or so long, where it looked at the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan, and they broke down everything that has to go into making that entire sequence, from pre-visualizations to the fight choreography, to costuming, to editing, to directing. It broke down everything, and it was really immersive in what it took to basically create those 4 minutes of cinema. This kind of does the same thing, but on a bigger scale. So you see everything in pre-production and the discussions that they're having in 2015 with Frank Oz coming to puppet Yoda, which is just mind-blowing that kind of secret had been out there for 2.5 years before anybody kind of knew what was going on. So you get to see that kind of the whole journey from that all the way up to kind of the production wrap, so to speak. And as a guy who loves process and filming and documentaries, it was speaking my language. And there's parts of it that I like. I mean, as a whole, I'd probably watch this more than I'd watch The Last Jedi. So for me, the companion piece is the movie. The feature is the documentary. But I definitely urge people that are interested in how things happen to check it out. I don't think you're going to learn anything new by watching it in terms of what they thought the story was for Last Jedi or concerns. You may have an appreciation for what it's like to make a film, but I don't think it's going to change your mind about The Last Jedi, because it doesn't change The Last Jedi. Again, we talked about this, a couple shows ago, about the deleted scenes. Are they canon? Are they not canon? Does it change it? Does it change your perspective? Should it? Shouldn't it? This is a whole other entity. This takes place in our world, not the story world, not the diegetic universe of Star Wars. This is very non-diegetic. This is what it takes to execute this. And you may understand that making a film of this magnitude is really big. At one point, the producer said, making The Last Jedi was bigger than combining both The Force Awakens and Rogue One together. And one of the interesting stats that they mentioned was for this film, there were so many sets that had to be made that's how they scheduled the film, because they only had so much space. So they had to basically shoot set by set in order to clear them out in order to basically finish the film on time, versus scheduling per actor schedules, which is normally what happens. And there was a lot of budget talks, like, can we afford this? Can we not afford this? Where do we got to cut back? Which is something you probably don't think about in a Star Wars Disney production. They've just got all the money in the universe. Well, this is not the case. So there's some very interesting things out there for filmmakers to check out, or people that are interested in how movies get made. So definitely check that out. And I'm a huge fan of the music-only cut. I haven't put it on yet. Is it worth the sign-up price? Which is basically free, but you've just got to sign up for the Disney Movies Anywhere app in order to access the feature. So I'll be doing that, and hopefully it won't be a pain in the butt. But to have that on in the background, just listening to John Williams' score and seeing the awesome visuals, which Last Jedi is full of, whether you like the story or not, it's beautifully shot and rendered. So I think the more that companies can do to create these home media versions, the more people like myself will buy the actual product. And I think it's another way to elude piracy. I mean, if the feature's cool enough, it'll leak out there. But when you can get the film and the feature and these other little tidbits, hey, that's your monkey's uncle. That's why we packaged Nintendo Quest with 2 extra discs full of content, and not just the film and everything on 1 disc.
Like I said, you pretty much covered all the bases on that. And these days, you've got to make stuff, like I said, with piracy so rampant out there, you've got to make stuff as enticing as possible for consumers to buy on a home video basis, with so much, because it's so easy to download and so easy to get this and so easy to get this, so easy to get that, as far as, from different outlets and different things like that. So having it the way you see it, as far as the all that extra stuff comes about when you see a product that actually goes out of its way to try and entice fans in it with a lot of other stuff. The Blu-ray for Blade Runner 2049, I think, does a lot of that same type of ilk as well. And I think that people should go out of their way to go ahead and try and see if they can get a copy of that as well. But be that as it may, definitely The Last Jedi, regardless of the opinion that you might have on the film, maybe it's great if you give it a second look, but also the behind the scenes and all the other great stuff that's on it as well, because it looks like that Disney and Lucasfilm look like they went out of their way to go ahead and make it actually something worth keeping.
I agree. I think it's, if Disney's ever trying to say, like, give something for the fans, I think this one kind of comes closest. The making of stuff on The Force Awakens was nowhere near as extensive as this. And I mean, this was being shot and produced well before the reaction to any of this stuff. So really kudos on them for having the foresight to want to make something like this. I think that's an important thing that people forget about.
That indeed. Absolutely. Before we head on out, I just want to mention to you, Rob, something I've always forget to tell you, but I always, if you ever get a chance, I know it's probably on the backlogs of the El Rey network, but if you ever get a chance, see the series Inside the Director Chair with Robert Rodriguez basically hosting the show, but he basically it's a Q&A with his director friends such as Coppola, Favreau, Stallone. There's like about 11 or 12 great directors. Del Toro. Just to name a few. And if you ever get a chance, they talk about what that was like a little bit on each and every picture that was major to them that they worked on as far as their filmography is concerned. So as a director, if you're interested in looking for some insight on that, not just you, Rob, but anybody out there, I really highly suggest the director's chair from the El Rey Network as well.
I will check it out. That's very interesting to me for a number of reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. You actually get that insight from even when they started up, how they get involved with directing and some of their early pitfalls, the ups and the downs, and how each of their major movies in their filmography, what their mindset was when they made them.
Cool. I will definitely check that out then. What was I gonna say? I just drew blank. I was gonna tell you something else that was super interesting.
Well, it's my fault.
That's what happens. You threw that at me and it got me thinking about 10 other things. But that'll do it for another episode of the Cosmic Crossfire on the Pop Culture Cosmos.
That's right, indeed. And it's been great to have you here, Rob. But if you have any questions for Rob or us here at the Pop Culture Cosmos or Rob McCallum Films, just let us know. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, Game Source, and Rob McCallum Films at Facebook or Rob McZob on Twitter. But also, before we head on out, Rob, any last stuff you want to go ahead and throw in as far as what you're working on and what's coming up from Rob McCallum Films?
Well, as always, we're really pushing the crowdfunding stuff. We capped off season 1 of Backdoor Busted with the info session that we did. So check that out at facebook.com/BackdoorBusted crowdfunding. We'll get back to breaking down the campaign shortly. Expect a new trailer for Box Art, a gaming docuseries that looks at the cover illustrators and the world of package design for video games really soon. Kitty Origins Evolutions releases March 30th. Go to robmccallumfilms.com and order your copy today. And of course, if you've been paying attention to Facebook, you've seen a few little teaser shots out there, some ongoing filming stuff that's been happening with yours truly and Mr. Jay Bartlett. And we hope that we can release something and start talking about it soon. Soon.
Well, let's hope.
Hashtag coming soon. Hashtag hope it gets out there.
Yes. Well, let's hope so. For all of our sakes, and that another great project from Rob McCallum and his best friend Jay Bartlett will soon be on its way. So, Rob, as always, it's just great having you on, and just so much, so glad to have you a part of the Pop Culture Cosmos.